and their families. Finally, the event is a celebration of the ideals of inclusiveness, diversity, and equity. So that's what this is about this year. And for those of you watching online, somebody has the sound on and I'm hearing a feedback. Does anyone? Okay, it's probably my computer. 1 second. Sorry about that. We had a little technical issue and I had to try multiple computers and I left one of them on, so I was doing that myself. Sorry, I apologize to the audience. Where was I? So that's the language and that's what we're doing. If you're watching online, we're doing a morning session, which just started. We'll take a break at noon for 2 hours and the afternoon session will start at 2 o'clock. Just so you know, there's a separate link in the email you got to tune in for the afternoon session. At lunchtime today, we'll do our usual happy birthday to Walter Reuther, who was born on September 1, 1907 here in Wheeling. And we do that every year. We have a cake. Those of you online can pretend. Sorry. And I would encourage you, those of you who are here, to go downstairs to the basement. You can take the elevator or the stairs and take a look at our exhibit of Walter Reuther and local labor history that has been moved into the laboratory. It's an interesting room space down there. And you're welcome also to have your lunch in the restaurant area if you want to spread out for lunch, or you can go outside because it's a beautiful weather day. And then Dr. Javersack will be here to take everyone on a tour down to the waterfront to see the Reuther Monument and the Pollack Monument. When I was in Charleston, a lot of people knew who Walter Reuther was. He was a fairly famous person. But nobody that I met knew who Augustus Pollack was. And so the reason he's included is because he was a business owner who had empathy, imagine this, for his workers. Not only did he tolerate union, he encouraged it. And they loved him so much that they built the monument that you'll see today, a very big one that's at the waterfront now. And it's, as far as we know, the only monument built by labor for a business owner. So that's what that's about. Okay, now I'm going to introduce our first guest. You have this in your program, but I will read it to you. Patrick Cassidy obtained his BA degree in philosophy from Wheeling College and a Juris Doctorate degree from Catholic University of America. He is the president of the law firm housed in this building, Cassidy, Kogan, Chappell, and Vogel LLC, where he's worked for more than 40 years, has represented employees, unions, and other individuals in civil rights matters and other issues related to the workplace. Mr. Cassidy is co-founder with his wife, Mary Ellen, who's with us here today as well, and president of the Wheeling Academy of Law and Science Foundation, otherwise known as WALS. He has presented on many aspects of the law and has written extensively on issues of economic justice. Here's Patrick Cassidy.
Thank you, Sean. You told me I couldn't touch the computer, so I won't be able to use the podium today. I kind of invented the I understand how this goes. That works now. All right. I quite haven't got accustomed to all this. Yeah. All right. So let's start again. I see some familiar faces here. People have heard me talk before, and you know, I'm afraid it's time that people are starting to realize he kind of gives the same speech every time he talks. And I came up with a topic, of course, based on something I'm interested in, and I told Sean what it was, and it's, you know, why West Virginians like Trump and guns better than law and courts, or how the labor laws have betrayed working people. It's a familiar theme to me, but again, a lot of you may have heard what I had to say. So as I struggled to figure out how to present this, I had an idea. I thought I'd talk to my father, who died in 1992. And so, you know, I've been around a while. I have a few contacts, can do some negotiating. So I contacted my father and I said, Dad, I need some help. I'm struggling over this topic here. A lot about it I don't understand myself. Having witnessed it all, I don't understand how working people supported strongly this man. And I have to give a talk on it. And he said, son, let me see what I could do. I heard back from him a few days later. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll come and give the talk for you. And I said, you can do that? He said, sure. Well, you're not the only one who knows how to negotiate things. Because, of course, I'll have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I won't be able to tell anyone where I've been for the last 20 years. So he's going to be here. In fact, he should be coming any time now. But let me tell you first about our names. He was Patrick F. Cassidy, Francis officially. I was Patrick S. Cassidy, Stanley officially. But, you know, to tell us apart through the years, I just tell people he's F, he's father, and I'm S, I'm son. And so that's how kind of people knew about him. And I'm going to let him speak for himself. Now, if you just give me a minute. Hello. My name's Patrick F. Cassidy, Father Cassidy. And, you know, my son told me I had to wear this kind of outfit. I want you to know, first off, I didn't wear a lot of suits in my day. In fact, I feel a lot more comfortable if I could take this off, if you don't mind, before I talk to you. I was born in 1922. About a year after Blair Mountain Uprising, and I got to say, I didn't know much about that growing up. I was born in a little town called Lilly, next door to some other little towns, Crescent, Portage, Western Pennsylvania, not too far from here, a couple hours, but it was in Pennsylvania. Lilly was such a small town, still had wooden sidewalks during my childhood, but it was a great place. My son tells me that some of the things that happened involved a lot of racial tensions. You know, I've been there before. You know, I was alive in the 60s, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. In my relationship with my son back in the 60s, it wasn't too good, but he's a good boy. He turned out all right. Anyway, let's start at the beginning. You know, in Lilly, we didn't have a lot of people of color, so I have a little hard time understanding all the racial tension. But the only person in Lilly that I knew who was a person of color was old Bill. He was the one who would sell scrap metal. He collected up all from all the kids in the neighborhood, and kids would bring him a piece of iron or a piece of lead or copper, especially copper. That was really good. And old Bill would always give him a few pennies, 3 cents. That's how Bill made his living. Hell, we didn't even know if Bill had a home. He was all around Lilly with his bag of wares, and he had a little stockpile of metal out behind the Opera House. But we boys, you know, it was during the Depression, don't forget. I was born 1922. I don't remember it. By the time I was 7, the Depression was here. So, you know, all I remember is when I was a little boy, people kind of looking out for each other, you know. What I learned real quick as a young man is that I was no better than anyone else. But then again, I wasn't any worse than anyone else either. I thought that we were all kind of in it together, especially in Lilly. And you know, that old Bill, he was the kindest man in Lilly. I didn't like my own stepfather. My dad died when I was 3 years old, Emmett Cassidy. I never knew him. But I knew Jack McNally. That was my mother's second husband. He was a cuss of a guy. Drank a lot, get mean, he'd hit on my mother. I didn't like Jack at all. Jack was not generous. Jack would call the chicken coop his own coop. We weren't allowed to get eggs for Mom unless we snuck eggs in the evening. brought them home so she can cook them up the next day out of Jack's chicken coop. He owned the house. I don't know why she married Jack, but nonetheless, he was my stepfather. I didn't think he was very fair. And I thought, the one thing I learned, at least in grade school, before I dropped out in high school, I'll tell you about that too in a minute, but one thing I remember I learned in going to school in Lilly during the Depression was what they call the golden rule. You treat other people like you want to be treated by them. That's all. It's the only thing I remember in grade school. I did start high school, but it didn't last too long. I'll tell you what happened there, Well, first I want to go back and tell one more story about old Bill. Because old Bill, I had a piece of lead one day found in Jack McNally's barn. And I took that piece of lead up to old Bill. I said, I'll probably get some money for this. And Mickey Smilenack, my friend, I don't know what the hell ethnic group he was from, but he was one of his dad. They were all in the same boat as us in the Depression. He and I hung out together every day, though, and we decided to take my piece of lead down to old Bill, see if we can get some money. So we did. We brought that piece of lead down, and Mikey gets the idea. He's going to go behind the Opera House and take a little piece of metal that already belonged to Bill, see if he could sell it back to Bill. I thought it was funny. I was kind of a little embarrassed about that. And so Mikey brings that little piece of metal he found up to Bill, and Bill looks at, oh, this is a nice piece of metal, worth about 2 cents. And Mike had a big smile on his face, and he took the 2 cents and he gave old Bill the metal. And then I was kind of embarrassed. I brought my piece of lead up and I said, what about this, Bill? And he said, that's a real fine piece of metal. I think that's worth about a nickel. So he gave me a nickel, and I felt so embarrassed. I said, Bill, why don't you take 2 cents off of that, for which paid Mikey, because Mikey got that from out behind the shed. And old Bill said, I know he did, but that boy has to learn. You got to give a man a chance to be honest. And I said, okay. Well, I went and told Mikey that, and Mikey very sheepishly came back and gave Bill the 2 cents back. And but Bill was the most generous person compared to my stepfather. Old Bill taught us kids generosity and, giving people a chance. And he was, I guess back then we would say a colored person, respectfully. But certainly the only person of color I knew growing up in Lilly. Well, then I told you I'd tell you about high school. After learning about the golden rule, after telling you about Jack, I come home one time, Jack was hitting on my mother. So I punched him right off the counter over the porch alongside of the house, and he fell back. Called up Mikey Smelnack. I didn't call him on the phone. We didn't have a phone. But I went over to his house and I said, we're out of here. So we hopped the freight train that just rode right past Old Dutchtown Road there at our old house in Lilly. And Mike and I were on our way. I had just punched my stepfather. I knew if he got a hold of me, I'd be getting a bad, severe whipping with a cat of nine tails that he always kept by the fireside. I've been hit with it a lot. So Mikey and I said, we're not coming back. One other story about my childhood I do got to mention, because it's about my sister, Helena. Of course, we didn't have a lot of money during the Depression, so Helena would never have any stylish shoes when she went to work. And so my mother gave her these old shoes that kind of looked like soldier boots, strapped up with string. Old Helena would get all kinds of teasing about that when she'd go to school. And I was always fighting for Helena to get in the fights with the boys that were teasing her and that sort of thing. Well, I was happy to hear from my son that women now pretty much take care of themselves along those lines. But it was also funny to